Bitcoin will be the gold of the 21st century. That's not just me saying it, it's Deutsche Bank who are sending shockwaves here. Goldman Sachs says that trillions are now going to flow into the Bitcoin and crypto market. Jerome Powell is currently triggering another shockwave, a real earthquake. There are now mass calls for Jerome Powell to be dismissed. There's really a conspiracy going on here, you could almost say, and now we have ARD warning about a total loss with Bitcoin. Here they say experts are also taking a rather critical stance. We have legendary mega Bitcoin investments from Kenton Fitzgerald, Adam Back, who was already mentioned by Satoshi Nakamoto in the white paper, and many others. Let's take a look at all of this, folks. Now make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, and the like button too, for higher Bitcoin prices. Not the price, I mean the subscribe button, hit that. The price is having a bit of a tough time right now, or well, what does tough time even mean? Actually, it's not really struggling that much, but after the crypto and Bitcoin laws were rejected here in the US, the price did have a bit of a hard time at first. But it could also recover very, very quickly now. And Donald Trump also says here that there are more votes coming up today, and if positive laws and regulations get pushed through, things could turn very, very positive for the Bitcoin market. You also always have to remember, as Mark Friedrich writes, remember, Bitcoin isn't going up, the euro is falling and losing its value. So that's always a very, very important perspective that you need to remind yourself of from time to time. It's not the euro that's dropping weight the other way around. It's not that Bitcoin is rising, but rather that the euro is falling. And that's also the reason why real estate prices are going up so much, or for example, other assets, sometimes even stocks. It's not necessarily because stocks or real estate are so great right now, but simply because fiat money is losing value. But of course, Bitcoin is still rising as well because Bitcoin is in its monetization phase. And now let's take a look at what Donald Trump has to say about this. Here he says it, by the way, drop a like today for the Bullish, the Bullish air pump here to show what I'm doing right now. That means here Donald Trump is saying again that today the Genius Act is getting another vote, and after it was rejected yesterday, which caused a massive shock and led to a slight sell-off in Bitcoin at first, it could be that today the thing goes through. And that also means very likely that if the market priced in the rejection negatively yesterday, then it will probably see approval here as a positive. That could definitely happen. I don't know exactly which bills are being pushed through or passed or voted on today. Whether it's the Genius bill or, which one exactly it is. Maybe it's even several of them. Donald Trump is talking here about the Genius Act and, he also says, after short discussion, they all agreed to vote tomorrow morning in favor of the rule. So they're going to support the whole thing here, right? Check this out. We've got mega investments here. This is huge news. Here, Wall Street giant Kent Fitzgerald is investing $4 billion in a new company with Adam Back. And that's obviously a really massive move here. Adam Back, who was already mentioned by Satoshi Nakamoto in the white paper. The whole thing is supposed to be called BSTR Holdings. And Adam Back is supposed to, if I understood it correctly, contribute up to 30,000 Bitcoin in value to this company. And he also wants to raise another 800 billion from the capital markets. And that's just a really crazy story. Here, for example, BlockTrader is reporting like, hey, the next imitator of strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, is waiting in the wings. Kent Fitzgerald. They're now ready to go all in on Bitcoin. And you can see what kind of massive waves this is making and just how huge the sums are that are being moved around these days. I posted about this earlier as well. There are currently 125 corporations that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheets, but there are 50,000 in total. So we have a massive gap between those who hold Bitcoin and those who don't. And if we now see that just these 125 corporations worldwide are already buying more and more Bitcoin than are even mined daily, then just imagine what would happen if out of those 50,000, maybe half or a quarter, or let's say even just a tenth of them were to hold Bitcoin. What that means for the, supply and demand dynamics here. That means, of course, that we have an absolute demand shock meeting a supply shock here. And that means Bitcoin go higher, number go up, Bitcoin to the moon. And what I really found to be the most shocking of all was actually the news. And this is really not fake. Check this out. db.com, Deutsche Bank. Here, you can also see the original logo here and the original homepage. Feel free to check it out. Deutsche Bank, go ahead and take a look. They're really going all in on Bitcoin now, making a big deal about Bitcoin and saying that Bitcoin could potentially become the next gold of the 21st century. I mean, guys, how bullish is that? Seriously? Now we have the biggest German banks, which have always been very, very conservative and probably slept on this for a very long time, finally waking up. This is a massive shockwave that's being set off right now. You really can't overstate how significant this is. It also says here, cryptocurrency market cap of more than $1 trillion makes them too important to ignore. So anything above $1 trillion here makes the whole thing too important to ignore. And then I also looked at the report. They even share a video there, and all sorts of other things are shared, like what Bitcoin is, how it works, who uses it for payments, how to use it for payments, and so on. They're basically making a basic guide about Bitcoin here, right on the German bank's website. And it's just crazy that people from the fiat cartel are suddenly writing about Bitcoin here. Not because they probably want to, but because they probably have to, because the market simply demands it. This is just the change, the turning of the times that we're experiencing here. And it's really a pretty big deal, if you ask me. And here we also have, this should be Goldman Sachs or maybe Citibank saying, yeah, clients want to be multi-boarded, multi-assets. So they want different assets here. They also want Bitcoin. And they also assume that a massive amount of money will flow into the Bitcoin market. I watched the whole interview, but we don't really need to watch it now. Here we have Jamie Dimon, also a banker, who is now making a pivot, saying that they will get involved in the Bitcoin and stablecoin or crypto and stablecoin market. So with crypto, it's already a question of what exactly is meant by that, to be honest. And we also have more and more advisors who are now pitching Bitcoin to their clients. Here, Matt Hogan from Bitwise is now taking part in the monthly meetings of the investment committee and is helping our team here with analysis. This was posted here, namely that Bitwise has signed a contract as a strategic advisor for an asset management firm with $50 billion in assets under management. They have now brought in Bitcoin bulls as advisors, and that's exactly what I've told you a few times already. The whole story with the advisors is also just totally crazy. That means Michael Saylor, who said, hey, if you can buy Bitcoin at all the banks here, then Bitcoin will be at $1 million. If the banks proactively pitch Bitcoin, then Bitcoin will be at 10 million. And that's exactly what's happening here with the advisors. So if you're somewhere with an asset manager, now we're not talking about a bank here, but a relevant asset manager, you might start to wonder who could that be? With over 50 billion, there are quite a few candidates who would make that list. If you think about it now, okay, you go to the asset manager, and in the past, it was like this, Bitcoin wasn't proactively pitched. You had to approach the asset manager and ask, hey, do you have anything with Bitcoin? Is there anything we can do there? But now the advisors are being proactively trained. That means they're getting drilled now and then drilled, not like triplets though. And then these advisors are aggressively going out to the market. So someone comes in for a conversation and says, hello, what's the situation? I need to invest my money. Then the advisor says, yeah, here, 10% Bitcoin, 10% gold, 10% this, 10% that. And then he writes 100 down here, signs it and says, thanks. Okay, that's exactly how I'll do it. And what the big asset managers dictate here, that's what a lot of clients end up doing. A lot of clients just blindly trust BlackRock here. If BlackRock says, okay, a 20% Bitcoin allocation is an absolute must. Everyone needs a 20% Bitcoin allocation here. Tomorrow, they'll all have a 20% Bitcoin allocation. If they say Bitcoin is rat poison, then things don't look so good for the clients, and then you always have to deal with the asset managers if you want anything to do with Bitcoin. And it looks like that time is over now. I also just got a voice message from a buddy who said, hey, it's really crazy now. The intense battle and all. It really seems like it's almost over. It's over. So the big players, they're more likely to grab Bitcoin than to try to regulate it down or anything like that. We still have Goldman Sachs here who say that trillions will flow into Bitcoin and crypto. So yeah, the next big player. I don't even know where to start here sometimes. Then we have the whole conspiracy story around Jay Powell. Now we're seeing a massive wave of shocking news. Here, Senator Lummis says, yeah, Jerome Powell has to go. And now we also have a bunch of other big accounts here. Check this out, almost 1 million followers. Here, Anna Paulina Luna, personal accountant for Congresswoman, right, Luna. And here, she's also posting with almost 1 million followers. Here, Jerome Powell is being fired from a very serious source. So it's even telling you, Jerome Powell is already being fired. Then we have more big accounts here, 300,000 followers. Happening now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, firing is imminent. So the imminent firing or the forced resignation, the stepping down from his position, or the fact that he's being unceremoniously kicked out, is truly imminent and could realistically happen at any moment now. Break time equals 0.5s/. Then again, here, we have this particular individual from the United States Housing Finance Agency's ministry, or whatever it is precisely called. So from the housing, how do you say, real estate stuff here from the US, who also has, I think, 2 or 3 million followers or something like that. He also says here, Jerome Powell's career is now over. Please step down, and lower interest rates. Now everyone wants to fire Jerome Powell, and there's a really big, well, I don't know, almost a chain reaction, you could say, because there are relatively few people speaking out in his favor. Most people are speaking out against him. And now we even have ARD, which has actually published a shocking report here, even warning about Bitcoin. They actually start off pretty well here, but then it goes in a really strange direction where it just drifts off at the end. Just check out this intense report from the public broadcasters. Are the public broadcasters maybe trying to create panic? I don't know. See for yourself.
There's also a certain hesitancy in the markets because of the trade dispute. It's a completely different story with Bitcoin. It hit a new record yesterday. Let's take a look at the chart over more than 10 years. Yesterday, it went over $123,000. We can see the rapid rise there. At the end of 2024, we already had a record like that, which was connected to Trump. He never gets tired of praising Bitcoin. Right now, there's a new boost because there are several crypto-friendly bills in the US that have been introduced to regulate trading. Yeah, but, it's a big deal that Bitcoin is climbing so much, but just as high as it rises, it can also fall. You could see that on the chart just now as well. Bitcoin remains on per.
Where exactly could you see that on the chart, please? She says here, just as much as Bitcoin rises, it can fall just as much as it goes up, it can go down here. And where exactly can you see that on the chart now? All I see here is a curve that just keeps going up. Sure, there are always small pullbacks, but the trend we have here is totally clear. The curve is going up, which means we're already seeing the first bit of framing here. We started off really well, but now comes the really wild part. Check this out.
Just to read it out as well, Bitcoin remains an extremely volatile investment. That's why experts regularly warn anyone investing here needs strong nerves and should only use money they could afford to lose completely if necessary.
So you heard it here, according to ARD, a total loss is definitely possible. That means the money you put in could be completely gone. Sure, that's true in theory, but in practice it's just very, very unlikely. When BlackRock, Donald Trump, Kendra Fitzgerald, all the big players are involved, even Deutsche Bank is now saying, hey, Bitcoin is the new gold, and ARD still doesn't get that Bitcoin is basically a relevant financial asset and keeps portraying it as shady, like, yeah, just look at the chart and so on, it can also drop really hard and stuff. There's always the same talk about the tulip bubble and so on, like, yeah, Bitcoin could go back to zero, just look at it. But that's exactly what you have to understand. Hey, the volatility is going up, not down. It's a different story if we're volatile to the downside than if we're volatile to the upside. You just have to zoom out sometimes, get out of the one-day chart, and then Morris Hefkin comes along again and says, oh look, there was a short period of 3 hours where Bitcoin dropped 10%. And where's the inflation protection now? Of course, that's just a snapshot. You really have to look at it on a 3, 4, 5, 6, or even 10-year chart. That's the case with any asset. You can't just look at an asset and say, okay, look, this stock dropped on the 3-hour chart. You always have to keep the long-term perspective in mind, and that's why I don't understand why the media put out such weird reports. The start was actually pretty good. Maybe they have to do that. Maybe they always have to mention 2 points, a bit positive, a bit negative. But most of the time, you can already tell that the framing is more on the negative side or something like that. In any case, let me know in the comments what you think about it. If you still want to buy Bitcoin, I'll put a link to 21 Bitcoin down below, so you can buy Bitcoin easily, safely, and simply. With the cool Bitcoin part, you can still save up to 20% on fees when buying Bitcoin. Guys, see you next time. Until then, peace out.